welcome everyone to our first edition of Oversized Overweight Industry Roundtable. It's something we've been doing for, gosh, about 7 years ago or so. Mr. Ray Morgan there was a part of this. Actually, he was our inspiration for starting this about 7 years ago. So going to start out with a little hospitality since we're recording this for the first time. As you can see on the screen, I won't read it to you, but we're a group of over 100 professionals across the country. If you have anything to do with oversized overweight permitting, either on the industry side or we've got a large number of state officials that join us every week as well, that's who we are. We get together, not every week, but most weeks to discuss industry updates, state permit office updates, changes, new permits, best practices, those types of things. Always looking for topics and guests, who we have a special one today. We meet most weeks again for about 30 minutes starting Wednesday, 1 p.m. There's our special guest today, which we'll get to in just a moment. Before we introduce them, though, we always like to see if we've got any newbies, any first-timers on the call today. I think we probably do today with the changeover of years. Anybody want to quickly unmic and introduce themselves to the rest of us? Tammy Heisler, I'll pick on you.
Thanks, Steven.
Because I know you're a good sport.
I'm really new. I'm not even, yes, I'm so thankful to be invited and absolutely dipping my toe into all of this. So I will just be listening.
Yep, you're part of the Landstar team.
Correct. Yes, thank you.
You bet. Anybody else on the call for the first time?
Yes, hi, I'm Brent Layton. First time. Appreciate the invite. Looking forward to joining in.
And Brent is with Izzy, correct?
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right. And I'm sorry you have to work with Donnie Reed, but my condolences. But
well, somebody's got to put up with him and keep him away from the rest of you. How's that?
No, we love Donnie. He is one of our favorites in the industry. Thank you, Brent. Anybody else for the first time?
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Kevin Staniski. I'm with KMX International. I guess it's my first time at the roundtable here, and we primarily, do oversized moves and heavy haul and rigging.
And tell everybody, because I know Ray and others know him well. Tell everybody the head man there at KMX, my good buddy.
Oh, Jim? Yeah.
Jim Vitez.
Yep, Jim Vitez. Yep.
Jim is one of the smoothest guys, smoothest cats in this entire industry. He was a judge for me many times at SCNRA, the contest that we did for the big bad moves. But yeah, tell Jim a big hello from all of us.
No,
all right,
I will do. I'll probably won't be talking too much because I'm actually dealing with a permit problem right now. So.
Okay, no problem. Oh, I expect almost everybody on this call to multitask. I'm not the most exciting person to listen to. I get it. All right, and then just a couple of quick news notes, and then Troy, I promise we'll get you and Clint. We always like to keep up with some of the comings and goings, and we just heard from Brent coming to Izzy. Boy, it's been a lot of big changes going on in our industry in the last year or two, and I'm certain this is public now because I've seen it on LinkedIn. Our good friend, I don't think he could join us today, Maurice, I call him Mo Martins, has taken a big position with Oxbow. So congratulations to Big Mo there. A lot of comings and goings, Ray, in the last year or two. You know it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very exciting. And then finally, those of you that have been having to suffer through my training, my permit training that I offer industry from time to time, know that I have this good, naughty, and the rest list. And boy, here's some examples of how to get yourself on the naughty list with our friendly state permit offices. This was a strange one. Kansas troopers were searching for an oversized overload truck driver. Very strange incident. The oversized overweight load was legally parked, I guess, at a truck stop or I don't know, somewhere, not doing anything wrong. And allegedly, a person in a pedestrian vehicle struck that load. I don't know if there was a fatality or, oh my gosh, there was a fatality. And all allegations here, but here's some video pictures where the driver of the load, and I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that maybe woke up and in the morning didn't know what was going on, but he took off and he's now being looked for a alleged hit and run, God forbid. But my goodness, strange story there, sad story. And then this one, I always hesitate, you guys know, to go on Facebook for anything because 90% of it's not even true anymore. But this one caught my eye. We talk about bridge hits a lot, and allegedly, one overhyped semi truck hit 6 bridges on a 90-mile trip. And because we have special guests today, I'll skip past this, but that almost seems like Ripley's Believe It or Not, how somebody could hit 6 bridges and not know it in one trip. And then finally, Alberta. We've talked about Alberta before, the province. They're really starting to crack down, as a few states are as well, on bridge hits and getting on the naughty list in the headline there. And this particular city, I want to say maybe it's Edmonton, they are really starting to crack down to the point where we've talked about chameleons in this business. All the carriers, Troy and Clint, that join our roundtable and typically come to SCNRA, as you've noted previously, are pretty much top of the line, cream of the crop, do things the right way. But I speak for many of them, Troy, when I say that we in the industry, or the industry, applauds and appreciates when state governments crack down on some of these fly-by-night companies, because they end up taking business away from the good ones. And underbidding them. And basically what's happening in Alberta and Edmonton is it looks like they're turning into Big Brother here, and they are getting after it. So let me now introduce you, Troy, and you, Clint. And Troy and Clint, thank you both. And if you briefly introduce yourselves, your roles, and maybe a little bit about your work history.
Well, I can start. So my name is Troy Malecki. I am I essentially manage the Oversize and Overweight Permit Section at the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. We have about 70 or so employees. I originally started there in February of 2015. Started as a permit specialist, taking phone calls, issuing permits, and then slowly made my way up. Before that, I worked in education and also some retail employment as well. I've met most of the people here, a lot of familiar names, so good to interact with you again. And then if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Troy. Clint, welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Afternoon, Clint Thompson. I'm director of the Motor Carrier Division for Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. I've been in this position for 2.5 months now, joined the Motor Carrier Division a little over a year ago. My background is transportation, title, and registration, about 16 years of management in that respect. County tax office, in addition to the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles in various capacities. Glad to be here. Learning, obviously. Lot to learn with Oversize Overweight. Troy's a great asset for us. Glad to be a part of this conversation and look to hear from industry and what the conversation is.
Thank you, Clint. And Clint, since we're honored to have you on the call today, I'm going to do a little bragging on behalf of industry about Troy and Texas DMV and the permits. While like with every state, we have an occasional concern here or there. Texas, and I'm not putting on airs here, everybody knows I say this all the time. Texas, if you were to do an informal poll nationwide of the top 5 oversized overweight permit offices, you guys, Texas, are going to land there almost every time. Whether it be your pro-business friendly, mentality to begin with, the state of Texas, whether it be your customer service, from top to bottom, we oftentimes single out Texas as one of the best of the best. So I want to make sure you heard that, especially since you're new to your new position. All right, Troy, sorry for the late notice about an hour or so ago, but I sent you some of these questions I'm going to run through. Let's start with, and anybody that wants to chime in, interrupt me. I get tired of hearing myself talk sometimes, or throw it in chat, and we'll interrupt and deal with your questions as well. So Troy, Clint, starting out, any recent changes within your permit office, procedures, new types of permits, anything we should be aware of?
Our legislative session ended last year. There were a few proposed bills, but nothing really made it out of committee to my knowledge. Nothing major. There's a steel bill. There was some overweight bills, some provisions for overgross weight and excess axle weight. But outside of that, no major changes. We didn't have any rule changes, so sort of business as usual with us from the legislative standpoint. Programmatically, we have made some enhancements to our system, which hope the industry has found to be worthwhile, such as the addition of the QR code, and then some other enhancements to the system through our tumbleweed release last spring. We did have to embark upon the shopping cart release, which mimicked what other states currently utilize. That took handling credit cards outside of us. It's a process we're going to continually to refine, but those are our major changes that occurred last year. Going forward, at the end of this month, the beginning of February, we're going to enact our fast routing release, which will also match similar to what other states have, with just enhanced functionality of the routing engine. I think Gino asked a question.
Yeah, I'll pose that question when you're ready.
Okay, no problem. I'll just latch onto that because I had that in my mind. The QR code, actually, with our next release, with the fast routing release, we're going to add that to our permit with the permit route guidance. So there will actually be two QR codes, one that actually takes law enforcement or the carrier to the permit details, and then the other one which will work with the permit route guidance in tandem with ProMiles.
Gotcha.
Going forward, we will probably move to permitting 1.5, which other states have utilized as well. So our interface will more or less match. I don't know what the actual incarnation will be. Ours is very similar to Georgia. We looked at those. It might look similar to Washington and their new interface, but we'll hopefully look for some happy medium in between. But hopefully that'll deploy sometime in late spring, early summer.
Gotcha. Before I go back to the QR code, because ProMiles obviously name is involved there. Clint, did you want to add anything to what Troy said about looking back over the last year and looking ahead?
Like Troy said, we didn't really have any major, statutory changes.
Right.
One of the things that we're looking at, and Troy, we should have checked the attendance list to see if we got any offenders on here. One of the things that we're trying to do, we've got our hubometer permits. That we have folks that are not closing out. So we're doing an outreach effort to try and make sure that those folks are aware that they do have to close those out and pay for the miles that are traveled on those permits to try and make sure that we're recouping the appropriate revenue. But other than that, like I said, we're moving forward and Troy and I are working together to make sure that we're customer centric, trying to automate things where possible. And with the shopping cart release, we had some things that we kind of refined to make sure they were a little bit more customer friendly. And that's just kind of the perspective that we got going forward, making sure that we're automating things, keeping customers in mind, and also our staff, if we can reduce things, staff processing from that perspective to make sure that it's more expedient on our end, that just benefits y'all.
And those are great segues. You just mentioned, Clint, into some of the upcoming questions I have for you and Troy, but I've got to go back to the QR code. And you stop me, Troy, if I say too much here. So, first of all, full disclaimer, ProMiles, we're very honored and fortunate to provide some of the efforts behind the scenes for Troy and his team in terms of the software and the issuance and such. In fact, Texas holds a special place in our heart because Texas, many, many years ago, was the first state to give our young owners at that time a chance to break into this market, and the rest is history. 26 states later, so we hold all 26 of our states in high regard, but Texas, Clint and Troy have a special place for us, and I know our owner Tim Pilcher feels the same way. But the QR code, so behind the scenes, Troy, and I should have talked to you about this privately first. Stop me if I say too much, but ProMiles has put the word out to certainly all ProMiles states, but my good buddy Gino Kaler, who asked the question, got to be first, and they're a non-ProMiles state, but that's okay. And the QR code, as most of you know on this call, currently is up in operation in Illinois, Montana, Mississippi, and Maine, up until today's announcement here. And what happens is in those 4 states, and now Texas, I presume, right by your route or somewhere near on the page is a QR code. And if you download the free, and I emphasize free ProMiles app, and our owners did this and made this offer to all the states and industry, just as our thank you to industry for all you've done for us over the years. You download that free app, you scan the code into your phone or your device, and you've got audible turn-by-turn directions for your permit route. And that is the permit route. You've heard about things like En-route and some other folks out there where you have to yourself type in the route or plot the route. There's opportunities for errors and mistakes, right? When that happens. But in this particular app, it's the real deal permit route coming straight from the state itself. And Troy, I was asked by Tim a couple of months ago to gather some potential drivers to test, some of whom are represented on this call here. Can I assume, Troy and Clint, that you guys went through a testing process already or didn't need to, and you've already launched this?
The discussions for the permit route guidance, unfortunately, occurred before I took my current role.
Okay.
It was discussed with our legal department and about testing and who would take care of that.
Mhm.
And it was agreed upon that the agency couldn't take on the liability of doing that testing.
Okay.
And the perspective from the state is we're not going to change statute or any language and rule to not require a carrier to have a permit available and use the provided route on the permit. The GPS application, the permit route guidance would be used as a sort of guide, but the actual legal document would still remain the permit. The legal turn-by-turn routing would still be encased in the permit itself. So the agreement was to work with, and you may have reached out to Roger from Totran when I talked to him at the last WashDo conference. I know he was doing testing for that within the state of Texas and working with getting that taken care of. But us as an department and an agency did not embark upon any testing of those that functionality.
But just so I understand, and again, Troy, I apologize, this is kind of breaking news for me too. Just so I understand, as we sit here today, there is or is not a QR code that comes on the Texas permits that can be used in conjunction with our free app?
That will be deployed along with our fast routing release. So there'll be 2 QR codes that'll populate on the routed permit. So the first one will include a link to the permit details, and the second link will take the carrier to audio and a map, and essentially link together to the ProMiles application.
Okay, so that's to come later down the path.
Correct, and we're looking at deploying that after testing right around the beginning of February.
I got to tell you, and Clint, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm the conduit person within ProMiles to field all the calls and bugs that we had to work out from previous states. Gino knows, he's been through it with me over the last couple of years, but everything seems to be working fine now. But Troy and Clint, if I had a nickel for every time somebody from industry reached out to us and said, please, 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 can you talk Texas into doing this? I'd be a millionaire. So God bless you all. It sounds like you're potentially moving forward with this, and industry, it will be so well received by industry. And I think our good friends from Indiana who join us most weeks, you're testing as well, Indiana, right?
Hello, everyone. Yes, we did test. And the functionality was working. The only thing that we turned in, and our leads helping us with it, is the amendments. It wants to continue to pick up the original route. So they're working on that, amended routes.
And that reminds me, Troy, of a question that just came in from our friend Chris Anderson. Do you know if this QR code will work with annual permits or just single trips?
One of our goals for the future is to, and I do have to double check, we do have a time period route capability built into our system. Our goal is to have a carrier use that time period route for any non-routed permit, any annual permit or quarterly permit, to generate a safe and legal route that detours any restrictions. The goal is to have that QR code work in tandem with the time period route that is generated through our system, and with that time period route with a QR code. I don't know what the current status is on that. I know Tim and Bill, the programmer, was working on getting the QR code uploaded to one of our testing servers and getting some carriers to take care of some testing using those quote dummy permits. I don't know what the status is on that currently, but our goal is to deploy that as well beginning of February.
Speaking of dummies, no, excuse me, my esteemed colleague Dan Wells chimed in here in chat as well with his thoughts about the. Okay, thank you, Dan. If you want to chime in, Dan, feel free to. All right.
Sure. Just I'll throw this in real quick. And how you doing, Troy? The route guidance app accesses the actual permit route from the state. So if you have a non-routed permit, one which the carrier is left to route themselves according to various maps and rules and regs and things such as that, there's no defined route in that permit for the application to use to provide you with a route. But if you're if one of the states, say for example, requires that annual permits get a route, then in that case, yes, they would be able to.
Thank you, Mr. Danny. And I don't know who called you a dummy. It wasn't me. So auto issue, self-issue thresholds, Troy and Clint, again, more bragging on the state of Texas. There are a number of states, thanks to SCNRA's efforts over the years, that now have auto issue, self-issue thresholds, but there are about 4 or 5 states that really stand out in terms of taking it to the limit, and industry appreciates it. And yours is one of those states, Troy. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but your thresholds are pretty darn high, are they not, for dimension and weight?
Correct. We allow a self-issue parameter as long as the load does not or as long as the route does not violate any restrictions, up to 20 foot in width, 1811 in height, 125 feet long, and 254,000 gross vehicle weight.
That's impressive. And what I always do in my non-paying job and advocacy to other states is look at Texas, look at Illinois, look at Montana, look at North Dakota. They have clearly, and I mean no offense to bridge engineers, because I've still got a good friend that's still with the Illinois DOT bridge office when I worked there, but they're a conservative bunch, aren't they, Troy? They are conservative, cautious, and what I advocate is if these 4 or 5 very reputable states have gone through the process of testing and determining that they and their system can very accurately and very safely do this, then the mold has already been broken. And I'm selfishly hopeful that a growing number of states will follow Texas's lead there in terms of these very generous and liberal auto issue thresholds. So thank you all for that. Okay, a couple of questions that came in offline to me that I sent you earlier, Troy. Can you just slowly or briefly walk us through the process for weight, especially extreme weight? Most everybody on the call knows the process, but just hear it straight from you as to what triggers who within Texas or who within a private engineer has to do what in terms of analysis.
Our permitting system analyzes the weights and the configuration according to a formula that's built into our administrative rule. So the system calculates all of that. It's pretty much used just for our mileage permits, oil well servicing, and unladen lift equipment, also known as a crane permit. So TxDOT has developed a formula. We utilize that formula, and TexPros essentially calculates it to ensure that the weights, quote, pass. It does not conduct any individual bridge analysis. I mean, that's some functionality that we would be looking forward to doing in the future, but working with TxDOT and getting that bridge information from them, coupled with, I mean, that's a big state, I'll throw that out there. We have a lot of bridges, and ensuring that we can do a calculation that's appropriate for each and every bridge. It would be a monumental task, but it would be beneficial for essentially all parties involved. So we use that built-in calculation for those well servicing units and crane permits. And they do not require any additional analysis until they exceed 254,300 pounds. If they do exceed 254,300 pounds, they follow the super heavy process, with the exception of well servicing units. So well servicing units, we still follow that calculation, even though they may exceed those weights. As long as the weights validate, we issue the route. Any other load, so moving a 500,000 pound transformer, we pull the bridges, we send it to the carrier's outside engineer who runs the analysis of those bridges. They return that analysis to us. We submit it to the TxDOT's bridge division, who verifies the analysis. If they have any questions, they present the questions, or if they want a bridge rerun, they can rerun a bridge or ask the engineer to rerun a bridge. And from that point, they either rubber stamp or decline the analysis. 99% of the time, the analysis is approved, and once we get that approval back, we add any additional conditions to the permit, then we're able to issue that permit.
Thank you. And please don't take this next question, gentlemen, as criticism, because having walked in your shoes before, Troy, when I was at Illinois DOT, I know it just happens from time to time in states. And the question, the way I worded it to you, was the process by which restrictions, with restrictions, for example, are communicated to your permit office and then updated. And speaking from experience, you know, there's a lot of different, and Clint knows this from all of his work with state agencies. There's a lot of moving parts and different agencies that go about in the process of getting those restrictions, those measurements, and getting them communicated to the permit office. And you know, an occasional concern represented by industry, Troy, you've probably heard it before across the country, is sometimes the left hand and the right hand don't always communicate, and a restriction pops up that nobody was aware of initially. So with that backdrop, just walk us through your process in Texas.
We take a slightly passive process. We rely on TxDOT to provide us and furnish us with any restrictions that may be affecting the roadways. So for example, in Houston District, if Fort Bend County determines that they need a specific restriction on a roadway, they provide that information to the Houston District Permit Coordinator, who will then funnel that information to us using a restriction order form. With that restriction order form, if there's any questions that we may have about it, or if we feel that there's a small chance it might be overly restricted or it might not be justified, we do ask questions. We don't decline to place a restriction, but we might ask questions to clarify the intent of the restriction, the limits of the restriction, and whether or not that's could be truly necessary, such as a full blanket no permit restriction, or if it just say a no weight restriction would suffice. So we do work with the districts to properly place the restrictions on in TexPros, and then we also immediately post them to our website. Those restrictions are also regularly audited, usually once a quarter. We rely on the permit coordinators to let us know. We contact the permit coordinators just to make sure if a restriction is still necessary. So we do conduct some outreach efforts in that regard. Importantly, too, they do forget to provide us some restrictions. So there might be bridge beams placed. There might be a situation where there's narrow lanes. If a carrier reports that to any of our permit specialists, their direction is to contact essentially our restriction team, and we'll reach out to the district and make sure we get a restriction in place if necessary. So we are active in that regard. If any information is communicated to us where a restriction may be needed, we do reach out and see if one needs to be placed.
Let me take that last point you made a step further, and I think I know, of course, what your answer is going to be, but we want to hear it from you. If in those rare, unfortunate incidents, the carrier has already started to move on a valid Texas DMV permit, and they believe they've come across a potential construction or restriction issue, what is your advice to that driver and that company to immediately do?
If they do encounter any situation that may be unsafe, if they can pull over to a safe location, we can provide them an amended route as quickly as possible, and make sure that we communicate that situation directly to the permit coordinator, just to make sure that the carrier is taken care of and we can get that load safely moved from point A to point B. If they do need a situation or need to be moved through a situation, law enforcement is always a good go-to if they need traffic control or to be moved out of a certain location. If that's the case, DMV definitely wants to hear about it, and we can take care of getting restriction placed on our end. But the first thing to do, if it's an unsafe situation, probably call law enforcement. If necessary, just pull over and contact us. We can take care of a reroute and do whatever is necessary in order to get them out of that unsafe situation.
On the flip side, I'd like you to comment on that scenario, just the opposite. We've talked often over the years on this roundtable about annual permits are a privilege that you states provide us. They are a privilege, but we hear from time to time, and it happened to me in Illinois, where sometimes they're abused. And one of the ways they're abused, unfortunately, is folks not checking their route that morning on your system to make sure they can run on their annual permit on that route, and getting hung up in construction zones, which is you know as well as I do. Boy, if you really want to get on the you know what list with us, not only a state DOT, but the state police, the construction crews, you get yourself hung up in a construction zone, your fault, not the state's fault. That's an enormous expense and trouble for a state, isn't it, Troy?
It is. I mean, especially when it comes to bridge hits, or if a carrier needs to back out of a certain area. We don't want to hear about those instances. We know we don't want to say they're inevitable, but for the most part, they are going to happen on a regular basis. Just either from a lack of information provided to us by TX.districts, or by using an annual permit and not checking a route to begin with. In that morning. We do want to encourage the usage of the time period route functionality that we do have built into TextPros. Essentially the permit number coupled with the dimensions of the load starting and ending point will provide you a printable route to detour any restrictions that we may have listed. So that is sort of our goal going forward, requiring that for any annual permits usage, just to make sure any compromised bridges are detoured, any construction areas are detoured. Thankfully, our annual permits do not allow a carrier to be over height. The maximum height on those is 14 feet, but it does allow a carrier to be over length and up to 13 foot wide. So it can create a situation if that route is not verified to begin with and there are barriers set up, and the load cannot get through.
Let's talk districts for a minute. That's been a topic of discussion for many years, and in Texas and other states. And I know your state has made outreaches before where you bring some district officials together and some industry officials, and they brainstorm. Most of what I've heard over the years about interacting with Texas and your districts is, fairly positive or at least neutral. But from time to time, Troy, I'll hear from industry a little bit of heartburn in terms of, at least in the past anyway, and I'd like you to comment on present and future, the districts sort of being coordinated when there's a multi-district big mega move. And the one example I'll give you that I've heard from time to time is in the past, one district might say, you're going to move daylight, and the next district over says, you're going to move nighttime, and that puts the carrier obviously in a tough pickle. What are your thoughts there on where things stand today?
We do, if we notice that internally, we will make an effort. For example, if there's a move that starts in Houston district and extends to Beaumont district, and Houston says essentially night only movement, depending on what it looks like over in the Beaumont district, we might request Beaumont night movement as well, just to make sure that the load doesn't have to park or wait or be, or at least we can try to keep them moving. I know everybody in this room or the virtual room loves the term harmonization, but that's one of our goals with working with TxDOT. Last August, we had to get together at the TxDOT headquarters to work on freight, to discuss some freight corridors and mobility as a whole. And we had an opportunity to discuss some oversized overweight permitting best practices with the districts, work on answering any questions that they might have. We are going to sort of scaffold off of that, and next month also hold a sort of permit coordinator roundup, very similar to what we have here, just to make sure we can answer any questions, discuss any processes and procedures, understand what their roles are, our roles are, and make sure that they try to talk to each other. We know one of the main issues between districts is that there's no, or I don't want to say there's minimal coordination from district to district. For example, we'll have seal coat season in the summer. Amarillo district will say no wait. I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if it's fully accurate, but Brownwood district might have 12 foot wide, 100 feet long, and 100,000 pounds max weight. And it might be on the same stretch of roadway. So it makes it very inconsistent for carriers to really plan their moves and plan their routes through those districts when each district views essentially the same type of construction differently. So we want to work on that and getting the districts to talk to each other a little bit more to make sure that they're consistent in, number one, how they place restrictions, the type of restrictions that they will want to place on specific types of construction. And then secondly, too, even for when it comes to special conditions, one district might have a blanket approval for load zone roads, and we might have another district that wants an escort for whatever reason. So we want to make sure that they understand the situations where an escort's required, why it would be required, and if there's any situation that they think needs additional safety measures, that they bring those up to us, and we treat them consistently and among all 25 districts.
Question from Bruce. I'm sorry. Yeah, Clint.
No, real quick. I was going to interject on the last question because you talked about left hand versus right hand. I can't help but agree. And then certainly with this question, that's one of my goals, is to make sure that the coordination with TxDOT is there, the collaboration with TxDOT is there. Obviously, there's challenges internally across units, sections, whatever the case may be, but then you get in between different agencies that there's that different element that makes things more difficult. And that's certainly what we're trying to do, is engage TxDOT leadership to make sure that we have those relationships and we have these forums to be able to talk to the appropriate people. It's important to me for them, one, to understand what we need, why we need it, but also for us to understand how they need us to communicate with them and what their role is, to make sure we're communicating in the proper way to expedite approval or denial or placement of a restriction or whatever the case may be. And so that's certainly something that we're working on when we talk about future state.
Thank you, Clint. And Ray, I noted your nodding head there of appreciation. Question from Bruce is, Troy, is there a plan to edit the shopping cart feature to add quarterly hub permits during renewals versus still having to pay for them one at a time when renewing?
At this time, unfortunately, no. When hubometer permits and the closeouts and the renewals were added to TexPros, unfortunately, in the original design, they were, for whatever reason, separated from the normal permit payment process, if that makes any sense. So when you're issuing a typical permit, just a routed permit, annual permit or such, you just may essentially move to the last screen, collect or place or make your payment, and then the permit gets issued. With hubometers, we use that little yellow button in the corner, and that whole process was separated upon discussions with Tim when we were developing this shopping cart feature last year. It was very difficult to link those two together. That could be developed in the future. I don't know what the level of challenge that would be to merge those two together, but it's something that we do have on the horizon where all of those hubometers can be linked together. Also, with the fast routing release, I really didn't mention this earlier, but we do have some enhancements coming coming to the hubometer process. So before a hubometer is renewed, we will do a validation just to ensure there's no open hubometer permits out there. And then the list of open hubometers will be listed, and then also an opportunity to close them out on that same page. But there's no way, to my knowledge, to currently integrate that functionality with that with the current shopping cart.
Hey, Bruce, I just want to say thank you for paying for your hub permits. That's one of the reasons that we got the programming that we're implementing that Troy's talking about. Is we've got a number of folks who are not actually closing those out and paying for the miles traveled. So thank you for that. And if there's anything we can do to streamline that, obviously we've got a release next month that we're talking about modifying that process for hub permits. But if there's anything we can do to streamline that relative to the shopping cart, we're glad to look at it.
I can vouch for that. Bruce and his company are definitely one of the good ones. All right, we're over our allotted time, so I'm just going to, Troy, end with two quick lightning round questions, and you can be as brief as you want here. Number one, how does your permit office prefer industry communicate with your staff, whether it be on a specific permit request or just questions in general? Email, chat, phone call, what's your preference?
I think it really depends on the permit type. Most of the more involved questions that we have permit related deal with either house moves, round inspection, or super heavy permits. At that point, I would just have the carrier email the respective accounts, either round inspection or super heavy. If it requires a little bit more involvement by motor carrier division management, such as a supervisor over that team, or even myself, feel free to reach out through those email accounts, or if you have my contact information, feel free to reach out as well. For more routine permits, just replying to that permit delivery email address, that works fine. Or just adding a note to the permit, essentially the functionality is the same. Adding a note to the permit with any questions about the status will elicit a response pretty quickly. If it's something that requires coordination or better coordination, or if there's a problem with the permit, don't hesitate to reach out to either supervisory staff, and we can provide that information, or just let me know and I can provide that information as well, to get anything expedited or any questions or concerns addressed from our standpoint. Or if there's a problem with TxDOT, just let us know and we can get that taken care of as well. But if it's a specific permit, just that permit note feature, responding to permit delivery, or the respective email boxes for round inspection, super heavy, or even house move.
Great. And last quick question. We asked this of all of our state official guests. You could probably come up with 9 pretty easy, 9 or 10, but what are 1 or 2 common mistakes that some in industry make over and over and over again in terms of permit applications that cause problems for not only them and their timely issuance of permits, but for your staff as well, that we can keep spreading the word in industry to try to correct?
The easiest, I think communication is key. Through our permit note feature, once a note is placed on the permit, it moves it up to our queue and we can be able to work on that permit immediately. So if there's any questions about a permit, instead of just adding addresses into their like load is starting here and ending here, let us know, if you have a preferred route, if you want us to enter a route for you in that regard. Just communicate what's really necessary for the carrier, just so we can, move things forward. We are very active on the phone, so we do engage in a lot of outreach and calling customers just to make sure we can get their permit issued then and there. So it's also important to have an accurate phone number that's added to the permit application at the very beginning, because that's a phone number we're going to use to contact any of the carriers. If you can't load zone your weights and you're starting on a load zone road, you can place that in a note and we can continue processing the application without sending an inquiry. Another aspect too, which is very helpful, are also via highways. Just the way the system operates. If a load has, just say, a 900-mile route from Amarillo to Houston, and somebody throws in a via highway that just says Interstate 10, it doesn't really do much to dictate the entire route, because then the system is going to try to take Interstate 10 all the way to El Paso before it shoots up to Amarillo. So we want those to be logical. We want those to be accurate. It doesn't have to be list every highway that the load has to travel on, but when we see that, we then have to question what the intent was, and did you want to take Interstate 10 all the way to, State Highway or US 385, North Amarillo? Like we just don't know. At the same time too, just placing the origin and destination using intersections and border crossings, making sure that's all accurate. We have a lot of permit applications where loads are starting on an entrance ramp, on an overpass, on the main lane of an interstate. We don't know if that's accurate or not, so then we have to hold up the permit, ask a question about that, and then get that updated, and then continue to process the permit. So that would be very helpful and expedite the permit issuance process and eliminate unnecessary inquiries and phone calls.
Ray Morgan,
I'll add one.
Yeah, Clint.
Sorry, I'll add one thing to that real quick. And I know stuff happens that's unexpected and you can't plan for everything, but probably one of the bigger things is order your permit in advance and make sure that you know when you're going, where you're going, and all that good stuff, and you allow time. I mean, we process pretty quick. Talked about it earlier. What are we? 87% self issuance. That's a plus, but for those that does require action by us, please give us ample time to be able to handle it and process it. That way you're not getting something when you need it after the fact.
Ray Morgan, our esteemed founder of this roundtable, keeping in mind that I'm already in hot water with Bryce Baker because he's got the next item for our group. As briefly as you can, kind of close things out here with your thoughts about just the years of great work that we've seen out of Texas. And Clint, I'll just throw this in. I got a lot of gray hair, as Ray does. I've been through a lot of permit office managers down through the years, Dwayne Carroll and on back. You got another good one here. We appreciate your selection of Troy.
Yeah, I agree. Ray, I agree with you. I appreciate that.
Ray, close us out, if you would.
Well, Texas permits, they're as far advanced as anyone, as far as I'm concerned. Being home state, it feels good to be able to say that. The communications has always been open, and they're not withholding any information. They're always willing to help. So appreciate the advances in technology. I've seen this permit system emerge, and you know, from the time it was dreamed up. I've watched it watched it take place, and it's been very great in my 48 years of being in this industry. We appreciate everything you guys do. We're here. We're your eyes and ears out on the road. We're here to talk back to you and tell you what our concerns are and what our problems are. So, you know, let us help each other. You know, that's what we're here for, is we're in this mutually. We're not just your customer. You know, everything moves by truck. And so, you know, we've got to move these things, and we're going to continue to do so. So I have a personal request. Can you tell me who the engineer is in the Dallas district? I've got some historical photos of the construction of 635 back from the 60s and 70s. I'd like to get to them.
Mm-hmm. I have your contact information, so I'll
thank you very much.
Look that up, and I can send it off to you.
I appreciate it so
no
much.
Problem.
Ray, I really appreciate your comments. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that we are doing a great job for y'all. And hey, same thing. I appreciate y'all being a resource. We're here as a resource as well. If y'all have concerns, questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're glad to have a conversation and figure out what we need to do to make things right.
You bet.
Very good. Clint, Troy, thank you. And I'll close on this not so light note. You don't have to answer this, maybe a facial expression or a thumbs up and down when I say, go Cowboys. Uh-oh.
Did my screen freeze? I was supposed to be ecstatic. Maybe my screen froze. I'm an Aggie.
There you go.
My wife does not allow me to sit on the couch and watch football 2 days in a row, so I pick Saturdays, and I watch Aggie football and college football. So.
Understood. All right.
Yeah, I'm from Chicago, so I'm all about the Bears. So
hey, it's your year. It's your year.
Yeah. It's been all
right. Clint, this is Dan. You could have explained to her that the second day was actually not football.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.